everybody, to all of our guests. Today we've got Hatzolah. It's our great pleasure to have our presenters, Yudi, who's the medical manager and operational paramedic. We've got Sheri Hanson, the consultant member of CRU, Darren Kahn, the executive general manager, and Uriel Rosen, the operations manager and operational paramedic. So I think it's fair to say we've got a very strong team over here, and welcome everybody and welcome to the show. It's our really great pleasure and delight to have you guys. Darren, let's start with you. Hatzolah is a proper brand name in the Joburg community. I'm sure everyone knows about it, but just very briefly, when and how did Hatzolah start?
Firstly, Rob, good evening, and thank you to yourself, Rav Aaron Zilberg, for having us tonight. And secondly, just well done to the base for your amazing initiative of giving your listeners the opportunity to get to know all our communal organizations a bit better. So Hatzolah has been around since 1998, so that makes 22 years now. Our humble beginnings started with Robertson Albach, brought the idea of Hatzolah back to South Africa. It was brought to life by Tome Levy. In fact, he's the brother of our current financial director. And during the infant stages, it was taken over and run by our current president, Dr. Brian Jude. In fact, the base was even run from his offices back then. Since Hatzolah has become a world-class medical rescue organization, which services the medical needs of the Johannesburg, Joburg, Johannes community. We've earned, thank God, an outstanding reputation for excellent medical treatment and personalized care of patients. Yudi is going to speak a bit about it later, but our motto is treatment excellence and unsurpassed response times. Just to give you just a short overview of our organization. So our organization is run primarily by volunteers. We have 58 responders, we have 23 dispatchers, and 31 crisis units responders. Just to explain to you what the CRU team do, basically it's made up a group of professionals who've got both psychological and social work backgrounds. And basically, they attend to the emotional needs of family and friends during stressful and difficult calls. We have a permanent staff complement of 30, which is made up of our full-time responders and dispatchers. We have 5 ambulances on the road, 4 response vehicles, and a mass casualty trailer. We offer various other services to the community. We have a CPR training center. We run Hugo's Heroes for various of the schools. A couple of the schools run this program. We have a medical equipment gemach, a hospitality house, and we do offer various other projects to the community, which I think will probably come up during the course of this evening. I think what really makes Hatzolah special is the commitments, the selflessness, and the kindness really shown by our whole team. And I think this is what has really endeared our community to our organization.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you, Darren. Just one point which just got my attention there, and you spoke about a medical equipment gemach. Perhaps just one of your fellow presenters in the course of their Q&A can just talk about what exactly that medical equipment gemach is. Just for our viewers, as always on our program, should you want to make a comment or ask a question, we will, the floor is open and we will pose questions to our participants. Darren, you're welcome to come in at any point in time with any further comments.
Sure. I think, well, maybe while we're on the subject of the medical gemach, I think let's just talk about it now. It might be forgotten about later.
Sure.
So basically, our medical gemach is it's obviously a free service to the community. So what we realized many years ago that a lot of people don't have access to, for example, wheelchairs, moon boots, various crutches, etc. And what it is that anybody who's had an op or who needs any of these various equipment can come in and for up to a period of 6 weeks we offer obviously a loan of this equipment. And hopefully afterwards, people will generally give a donation, etc. But just to give you an indication, I think within this last year, we've had over 450 people who've actually made use of this medical gemach. So it really is something that is used and I think treasured by the community.
Wow, I had no idea. And in fact, it's quite a good point, Darren, that you make there, is that, I think, and I speak for myself, but I'm sure that I speak for a lot of people in the community, is that people think that Hatzolah is just, you phone Hatzolah, the ambulance comes, checks you out, fixes you there and then, or takes you to the hospital. So if I can just ask the panel, to the extent that that perception is incorrect, like for example this medical gemach, please, this program is to highlight and to show what Hatzolah can do, and I'm sure that there's a heap load of stuff which you guys do that the wider community are not aware of. So I really would want all of what you do that you feel that the wider community should be made aware of, like this medical gemach, to come out in the show. Very important. Thank you, Darren.
Yeah.
Okay, Yudi, over to you. I think it's fair to say that every person listening here has an enormous respect for Hatzolah. Hatzolah is a vital part of the fabric of Johannesburg Jewelry. I for one, don't even know what we would do without Hatzolah. But the interesting thing about Hatzolah is the medical excellence and unsurpassed response times. I don't think anyone can point a finger at the quality and timeless response times that Hatzolah does. How do you achieve it?
All right, hi. Thank you very much for having us on tonight. We strive for medical excellence and unsurpassed response times. We live by that motto. We do everything in our capacity to try and make sure that that's what we're delivering. We know very well that the people we're serving are in dire need of medical assistance, and that is dependent on good quality medical care as well as fast and urgent care. And it's made up of a whole bunch of things. It's one thing to drive to an emergency very fast, but that doesn't necessarily get you there quickly. So we've got things where we've gone into a lot of effort and energy to work on the processes that we have, such as the way in which we dispatch the calls, such in the way in which we transport and activate hospitals. All these things add up to the medical treatment and the response times that the patient gets. So it's one thing getting to a call quickly, and we're very fortunate to have licensed sirens and ambulances and things like that, but we also need to manage the patient further from there. So for example, we've got, for many years now, we've had fancy equipment that has the ability to transfer information from scene automatically to a cardiologist if a patient's having a heart attack. So for example, let's say there's a patient having a heart attack and their doctor is at Mill Park Hospital. We'll activate the Mill Park Hospital team and send their cardiologist the picture of the ECG, and we'll bypass the emergency department, bypass those things that cause delays, and we'll go straight to hopefully cath lab, which is where the patient needs to go, the theatre, to fix that heart attack, or maybe ICU until they can get the cath lab ready. But we try to bypass as much delay as possible. And there's a whole bunch of things that make up this treatment excellence and the medical excellence that we provide with Hatzolah. We spend days and days and days of the week busy organizing and perfecting how we're going to treat these patients. That's through strategy with the board and the management team. It's activating the volunteers. It's training. It's going to be education to the community. We do a lot of training with our CPR center that Darren mentioned before. We market a whole bunch of material. There's so many projects that we do that you've, I suppose, come to be aware of tonight, and hopefully we'll bring up a couple more. But there's so many things that we do all the time that most of the people in the community don't even know that exists, and that's stuff that we do in the background to make sure that we are able to treat the patients. And something small is that we have training every night of the week. We have training every day that we're going onto a call. We're busy training the guys on the call, and we're perfecting the skills. We have specialized training in-house and external training. We go through our patient report forms. This is very confidential information that is not shared beyond the Hatzolah specific quality assurance group. But with that, we scrutinize everything that happens on the call to make sure that the treatment is well above board. Right.
Yudi, obviously, COVID has put enormous pressure on medical systems worldwide. And I think it's fair to say that Hatzolah has been the champion of the Joburg Jewish COVID pandemic. I'd like you to spend a little bit of time on this. Don't feel rushed for time, because this is a very, very important part of where we actually are today. And if you could just talk us through what you guys have done for COVID, how COVID has changed Hatzolah, and most important, a personal message to the community, what Hatzolah would like to see the community carry on doing and perhaps even stop doing.
All right, so let me start off with COVID is a very new thing for us. It's a new thing for the world, a new thing for the country, a new thing for the Jewish community, and certainly a new thing for Hatzolah. We didn't know how to treat COVID. We didn't know what to look out for. We didn't know how to prepare for it. And we started following trends overseas. We started seeing what was happening in Italy, in America, in Israel, all these places where we could see it coming for us. And we had to make do with what we had available. We have, Hatzolah has had PPE, personal protective equipment, that we've had for many years. We've always had PPE, but we've had PPE for specific reasons. So when we go into a car accident, for example, we've got special jackets and pants and helmets and breathing equipment and all these different things that help us protect ourselves on scenes for what we may be exposed to. We did not know how to prepare for COVID and what the threat was and how to make sure that our response was safe. This was a big game changer for us. We had to learn very quickly, and we had to put in place all these different measures. The PPE that we had, some of it was sufficient, but we didn't know anything about it, so we had to go and learn about it. We changed our PPE very, very, very often as the climb increased with the number of patients, as the type of patients that we were seeing changed. Just the different elements that brought us to having to improve on how we were treating patients. Unfortunately, it's changed a lot for us in terms of our patient treatment, not the quality of the care and not the passion, but it's changed our ability to engage with patients. We're now wearing masks, we're wearing these big visors. You can't see much. It's like looking through in between my hands over here, trying to see through the screen. You can't see much. You can get obviously it gets quite hot in there, so the moisture and sweat and things like that don't assist with this, and it makes it very difficult to see and to engage with patients. They can't see you smiling, they can't see you talking to them, they can't hear you, they can't see your facial interactions, which is so important in the patient treatment that we have on a usual day-to-day basis. So this was quite strange for us, and this was very difficult, and we had to go reach out to whoever we could. We went internal as well as externally, and we attempted our best to learn about it as quickly as it could. And then what we were able to do was train our paramedics, our dispatchers, CRU team, everyone who was involved, to learn how to treat these patients as best as possible. And we had to learn. We had to pick it up quite quickly. We saw trends. Uriel's going to be talking about the wellness program, which was a massive project. We've improved the functioning of our ambulances, how we work. We've got a special team dedicated to cleaning and decontaminating our equipment, our ambulances. We've got people that are working on getting us onto the road as quickly as we can after one call in order to service another one. There was one stage where we had 6 calls at the same time. We have 5 ambulances, all right? We have 5 ambulances and we had 6 calls simultaneously. That meant that we had to work out ways in which we were transferring a patient to hospital and then activating that ambulance again to a call very quickly. We have a specialized mass casualty incidents team who we use to help us build a plan. We've tried very hard to learn about this, but a lot of it has been trial and error. And we've formulated teams, expert teams, if I can say, using internal personnel as well as external resources to kind of guide us where to go. You asked about something that we could potentially do as a community to help improve what's coming ahead. We saw trends. We can still see the trends happening as one carries on with this COVID pandemic. And I think what we should ask for is people to identify the need for masks and for the social distancing. We're seeing as people are getting close and close together, obviously people are mixing, and we're seeing the lead from one person to another, to another, to another, and that's obviously growing quite significantly. I think people just have to identify that we get sick, we can't help people. So we need to protect everyone here. And we try our best, but we need the community to try their best as well, as much as they can.
Yeah. Yudi, just from a community point of view, is there anything from a community that we can help Hatzolah with more than, donating money? You do have your volunteers, and I'm going to come up to how your responders keep motivated. But, is there anything that you would want from the Joburg Jewish community other than the vital lifeline of donations to keep you going? I'm talking about support or anything else. This is a show that brings it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's been an enormous amount of money used to purchase PPE. When we initially started, we weren't able to obtain PPE in South Africa. There were people grabbing every mask that they could. They weren't manufacturing masks. They weren't bringing masks in. So we were in quite a tricky situation. And we used a lot of funds to try to secure the PPE as well as we were able to. And we developed a whole bunch of programs and a whole bunch of we planned a whole bunch of strategies in order to make sure that if the patients in the community exceeded that of hospitals and Hatzolah's normal care, we'd have to come up with plans. And we worked very hard to do this. This costs a lot of money. So I think the donations are really an important consideration here. And look, I think we'll talk about it again soon. I suppose you were talking about the motivation, but I think the responders really desperately need to feel motivated and to feel needed and to feel cared for. It's a long journey. It's not nearly over, and it's been a hard couple of months.
Well, if you don't mind me coming in here,
of course, Darren.
What was quite important, we created a special PPE committee just to make sure, because at the end of the day, we couldn't afford, we've got a very small team, only 9 responders, and we couldn't afford actually to have one of the teams out, because effectively there were many Hatzolahs worldwide who actually closed down because of they actually had to close their doors. So we were quite strict in terms of getting the correct PPE. Currently, thank goodness, we were able, at obviously certain times we had to pay a bit more, but we were able to, because at the end of the day, our responders are who we need to look after. And I think we're quite proud to say that our responders haven't got sick from this pandemic. But currently, in terms of PPE, I think we're good, and quite a bit of the community have offered donations in terms of masks and other various equipment, and we're very appreciative of it. But currently, we're pretty good from a PPE point of view.
Okay, and Darren, just a reminder to our viewers, we're open for comments and questions, and the bank account for donations we will be putting out to the participant list. Darren, just in terms of other than PPE, is there anything else that the community can be doing other than donating? Is there anything that you need?
No,
how do we help you?
So Rob, I think so financially, I think that is really the ultimate. In terms of, like, I know a lot of people want to volunteer to become a responder or a dispatcher. At the moment, our staff complement is pretty much both for volunteers and permanent staff. We really are running the organisation really well. So I think in terms of that, just the appreciation and the thank yous and the hakarat tov really mean a lot to the team. Just the fact that they're putting themselves out there, they're giving up a lot of family time, etc. I think just appreciation is great. And
Sure.
so I mean, just obviously financially, obviously we have spent quite a few million rand in terms of the PPE and special equipment over the last couple of months. But thank goodness the community have really been good and very the donations have really come in generously, and we can only appeal to everybody to please continue just to keep this amazing organization going from that point of view.
Agreed, and I support your point 100%, Darren. If it was more than 100% statistically, I'd even support it more than that. Darren, just a question. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be quite motivated to join Hatzolah, a lot of responders, a lot of volunteers. Are you guys open? Is there capacity for that, or are you at max? Let's just talk about responders, volunteers, how long it takes. From a community point of view, we're all in this together.
Yes, so Rob, that's actually a very good question. I think in terms of dispatches, I think Uriel can probably come in. At the moment, in fact, I even offered Uriel to could he train me up as a dispatcher? But the compliments at the moment, we've got enough dispatchers actually to service that side of the business. In terms of responders, we're always looking for new responders. Back probably about a year ago, they actually changed the legislation where previously it used to take, you could to become a basic life support paramedic, it used to take, say, maybe 6 weeks to 3 months to get that diploma. Unfortunately, legislation has changed, and it is quite difficult to get the degree. We actually internally we have offered. It's called an ECA. We at the moment have applied to do our own internal course. We're quite far down the line, and we're hoping that maybe from next July onwards or in the foreseeable future, that we'll be able to offer a part-time course. In the interim, we have offered, if there are any youngsters out there, we have offered Netcare offering a course starting in January, which is a full-time course, and we would obviously make provision and assist them in getting this qualification, because I think, Rob, if you look at our complement of our 58 responders, many of the guys have been around in the organization, say 15 years, etc. And the guys are getting tired. So we are looking for new blood in terms of responding. And if there are any youngsters out there, we would gladly take on anybody new to the organization from a responding point of view.
So Darren, let's just pause there. For those viewers who want to themselves or know people who want to, what's the next step? Do they email Hatzolah? Do they phone you? Do they go onto the website?
So the next step is that they can actually email me, darren@hatzolah.co.za, or they're very welcome to call me as well. So they can just call our office number on 0860 100 101, and the call will be forwarded to me, and I'll gladly have the conversation. In fact, we very much welcome it.
Okay, great. So can I ask Darren if you can, when I'm speaking to Uriel, just WhatsApp Moshe Zulberg, and Moshe will put it on the chat show, both your contact details for hopefully some successful volunteers. Okay, so we've dealt about dispatchers, we've talked about responders. Is there anything else that you need help with, Darren?
Thank goodness we're okay. We actually from that side of things, we're really okay at the moment. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you, Yudi. Just feel free to come in at any point in time during the rest of the show. Uriel, over to you now. We speak about a wellness program. First of all, what is the wellness program, and how did it come about?
Thank you very much, Rob. So I'll give it to you in really bullet points. It's really running late, or I think.
Now, don't worry about the time. You know, for the time that you guys give the community can give you the time. I want to do justice to the score, so don't miss out on anything, please.
Perfect. So came April, around about April time, we started realizing, Hatzolah as an organization started realizing that there's a virus out there. They're calling it the SARS-CoV-2 or, you know, the COVID-19 virus, and it's coming for us, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. So what we started Yudi, myself, Darren, and the board of directors really started brainstorming ideas as to what we need to do, how can we cope with this, what do we perceive the problems to be, etc., etc. And we came up with an idea of this wellness program. Now, really, we don't know much about COVID now, and we didn't know much about it back then. But what we did know was that from specifically Italy and surrounding areas, we actually realized that a lot of these patients were getting really, really, really sick, not realizing they're getting really sick, and then landing themselves up in hospital and in a critical condition. So we started thinking of ways of determining if somebody is going to get really sick before they realize they're getting really sick. So basically, the whole idea was that we will see their vitals deteriorating before they feel it. And that was really the first, call it, objective to this wellness program. The second objective to this wellness program was we realized that there was so much anxiety. I mean, we as people that didn't have COVID in South Africa yet were feeling anxious about this whole COVID-19. Can you imagine the person that didn't have any medical understanding or knowledge getting coronavirus? Can you imagine how they must feel? So the anxiety part, or alleviating anxiety, came into it. And the third objective was really, how is Hatzolah going to better prepare for when we really hit peak times? I mean, we were looking at Italy, where their hospitals were overflown with patients, and they had no room for patients, and patients were supposedly dying at home. How did we manage that? So what we wanted to do is better prepare for that. But in order to better prepare for that, we needed to know when it's coming, and not just spend all our money and resources when it may or may not come at all. So that's how the wellness program was born. Now, what I did was I actually spoke to one of the operational guys at Magen David Adom in Israel. I chatted to him a little bit about my idea. Basically, Israel will call Israel, the Misrad Habriot, the Department of Health, were calling people that had COVID and were checking in on them regularly during their COVID, disease. And that got me thinking about an idea. Why don't we just deliver a pulse oximeter, which measures the amount of oxygen in your blood, also measures your heart rate, and a thermometer that can measure your temperature? Why don't we deliver that to you, give you a phone call once, twice a day, or once every 2 days, depending on what, a certain criteria, and check in on you. And if we start seeing that your vitals deteriorate, well, then we can possibly do something about it. Maybe admit you to hospital, which will result in a better outcome because we've caught it earlier, or treat you at home if that's really what it's all about. And that was the idea. So I remember posing this idea to the board of directors, which they thought could be a viable solution. We decided to purchase 50 pulse oximeters and thermometers. And we said, right, now create an algorithm. We then went and created an algorithm based on vital signs. I consulted some doctors, pulmonologists, intensivists, and other medical professionals to come up with the right measurements. If a heart rate's above this, then we need to worry above that, etc. Just to get the exact measurements based on that time in April. And we created in March actually, and we created the wellness program, and that's how it really started. And that's really the idea, yeah.
So Uriel, the wellness program is specific really to COVID.
Yes, it is specific to COVID. It's designed for COVID and is used for COVID. We have used the wellness program for a non-COVID cause once or twice, but that was just because we had the ability to do it, and we decided to help the community member. But for the most part, it's a COVID-19 program.
Okay, and we've got something on the screen here. Okay. Uriel, do you want to talk through what you've put up here, or is it self-explanatory?
So let me maybe run through the day-to-day kind of how the whole program works. So for the listeners out there. Also,
I think what will be very interesting, Uriel, very, very interesting, is at the peak, how many community members were you looking after? And, just so that we can just give our viewers just a scoping of just what the size of all of this is.
Sure. So let me run through the whole program with you as a patient. So right. A patient starts getting COVID-19 signs and symptoms. They'll generally need, first point of call would be to speak to your general practitioner, to your doctor. He will then determine if this is more COVID related or not COVID related. If it is COVID related, he will generally refer you on to Hatzolah, or you can just approach Hatzolah directly yourselves. It's almost irrelevant. If you go for a COVID test or you test positive, you'll also come on the program. What you do is you WhatsApp your name and number, or you go onto the hatzollahwellness.co.za website and register your details. This is if you have signs and symptoms of COVID or you have tested positive for COVID. You would come on the program. We'll then load you onto our wellness program backend, our website. And that basically, based on your medical conditions, will determine your risk status. Now, we've basically categorized patients into 3 different categories: a low risk, an intermediate risk, and a high risk. A low risk patient, typically, if all vitals are great, will get called once every 2 days, once a day. Intermediate risk will definitely get called once a day, and a high risk patient will get called twice a day. And that's just, for better measuring and better monitoring of the patient. And that's obviously if all vitals are great. They then join the program. What we then do is we assign a delivery to them, and someone the next day or the same day, depending on the time that they sign, will deliver a pulse oximeter and a thermometer to their house. Explain to them how to use it, and say that you'll receive a call. That afternoon or that morning, depending on when you get that delivery, you'll receive a phone call from a Hatzolah wellness volunteer. That Hatzolah wellness volunteer has been trained to look for certain signs and symptoms, to hear how you're talking, to measure how you're breathing on the phone just by talking to you in the sentence, and obviously loading your vitals onto the program. The program dishes out, tells you actions, something. So continue monitoring, or suspected deterioration here, or this is now time to contact a GP. If there's a bit of call it a suspected deterioration in the vital signs, or we're worried about those vital signs, what we'll then do is we'll contact the patient's GP immediately. Doesn't matter if that is at 6 in the evening or at 6 in the morning, that GP will receive a phone call generally from me, and we will discuss the case. If he doesn't answer, there are many physicians, pulmonologists that are willing and able to take our calls, that we can discuss the case with. And often what we'll end up doing is one of 2 things. We'll either send a nurse to their house, or we will admit them to hospital. Let's just discuss the admission straight away to hospital. If they're getting admitted to hospital, we'll generally arrange the admission ourselves to the facility of their choice under their doctors. What we do is some of the time they may need an ambulance, so we'll send them an ambulance, but most of the time they don't actually need an ambulance. all they need is a lift to hospital because they're probably a bit too sick to drive, but not too sick that needs an ambulance. So what we actually did in Hatzolah is we created like an Uber service, which is, we call it the Hatzolah Assist service, and that is a bunch of vehicles. We got actually 3 people that work 24/7 for Hatzolah, and they've got a separation between the front cabin and the back cabin, and the driver wears personal protective equipment, and they arrive at the passenger's house or the patient's house. The patient gets in, they drive them to the hospital, they drop them at the hospital, they come then back to the Hatzolah house and they fully decontaminate that vehicle so that they can go to a new patient. So it's almost like an Uber, but for COVID positive patients or for patients that are suspected to be COVID positive. So if they need to get admitted to hospital but don't need an ambulance, we'll use that service. If we're not sure if they need admission to hospital, what we'll do is we will send them a nurse. Now we have 4 nurses, 2 that work every day. So there's a rotation of 4 nurses, and they go to certain patients that we tell them to go to. So if we're worried about a patient here, the nurse will go to that patient and do a physical assessment on the patient. The nurse then may call us back and say, listen, these are the vitals, this is what the patient looks like. We will then consult with the doctor. The doctor will then either order like blood tests, so the nurse is there, she'll take blood tests right there, in your home, or we'll advise that the patient needs oxygen or that the patient needs to go to hospital. If the patient needs oxygen, that's a whole different component. We actually secured oxygen for home oxygen for patients. And in the very beginning, we also secured BiPAP machines, and they're basically, call it ventilators. And that was if we ever hit a stage where we were not able to admit patients to hospital because the hospital was at full capacity, we will be able to somewhat treat these patients at home, these more critical patients at home. The BiPAP machine ventilators, thankfully, were never used, but the home oxygen was used. So now the second you get put on home oxygen, you get a nurse every day. A nurse comes to you every day, so you get a phone call twice a day, plus a nurse every single day to monitor your vitals. And that's pretty much how the program runs, in bullet point brief moment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Uriel. It's amazing. Really, really amazing. Uriel, and these nurses that you talk about, are they part of your responders team or not?
No, not at all. They are, we hire them. They actually all RCU trained. So we haven't gotten the average nurse, although they probably could do well. But these nurses are very trained, very qualified from different agencies that we have. Just to touch on you asked a question about our peak. So during our peak, we had over 30 Hatzolah wellness volunteers making phone calls. We were monitoring over 300 active cases a week, with an average of between 30 to 50 new cases a day. That was during our peak in mid-June, end of June.
And Uriel, and now, I think I speak for myself when I say that there's a perception that COVID fatigue has come in here, where there's a bit of a laissez-faire. I think maybe it would be quite interesting to, where are we now actually? We're certainly not over this.
Yeah, let me give you some stats, as some real-time stats, as I call it. So we're seeing a trend of like ups and downs, and it's every second week we're seeing a little bit of a rise and then a dip again. So I mean, it goes from like 34 new cases a week to 16 new cases a week to 32 new cases a week. Last week was our quietest week in months. We had 2 new cases a week, and that's the ones that have joined that Hatzolah program. This week we're already on 4 new cases. So it seems like it goes through the waves. Let me give you some real-time stats. So far, we've treated we've looked after a total of 1,126 patients on our wellness program. We currently have only 30 active cases. We have a total of 1,056 recoveries. What's interesting to note is the age groups of our most cases are between 31 years old and 40, and 51 and 60. Those are our most, call it age, the age group that has the most patients. We've had a total of 119 hospital admissions total. Our average days in hospital are 7 days patients remain in hospital that obviously leave our program to go to hospital and then return onto our program. We've made a total of 23,533 phone calls and home visits together. We've actually, the Hatzolah Assist, the call it COVID Uber that we've done, has made a total of 2,834 trips since beginning of March. So we've really, I don't know, I heard a stat, I don't know how true it is, but that we've treated more patients than most of the private hospitals in Johannesburg so far, at least on the wellness program.
It's amazing, Uriel, to you and your team. Kol hakavod. You know, I'm getting exhausted just listening to to the work that you've done. And I want to get to Yudi at the end, Yudi, and just ask the question, but not now, is, you know, how do you keep everyone motivated and continue to work at this level of efficiency throughout what is a very, very difficult question? But before we get to that, I want to speak to Sheri. But before we even get to Sheri, just 2 questions. One for you, Uriel, and that is from the panel, from one of our viewers. Do clients have to pay for the wellness program?
No, this is absolutely free. I often tell this whole program doesn't go without a massive team that is working behind the scenes here to make sure that this works really well. But I often say that if I could literally stand up with a banner outside Burgers and Brew by Yeshiva College there saying, "Let us look after you. This is what we're here for." That's my message. We are here free. Just join our program. We're here to look after you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'll just mention one small thing.
Yeah, sure, of course.
These huge numbers that Uriel's talking about, this is one program that Hatzolah is doing during this time. So we still have to be able to carry on with responding and dispatching all the other emergencies that come into place as well. So this doesn't take away from our ability. And this is something to take note of with our responders, the volunteer responders, the full-time responders, the volunteer dispatchers and full-time dispatchers, that this is something that they have to keep working on in order to facilitate this wellness program. But as the community needs, they need to be able to treat and transport the other patients who are having heart attacks or car accidents or everything else. So it's something to keep in mind.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Yudi. Darren, just a question for you, and that is, we speak about Hatzolah looking after the Johannesburg Jewish community. How wide actually does Hatzolah go? What actually is the radius of care given to?
So, Rob, in terms of the wellness program, I think let's maybe just differentiate between the wellness program and a normal call. So, in terms of the wellness program, if you're a community member, we will service you wherever you are. I mean, in fact, I think at one stage, I think Uriel will be able to tell me, I think we had a patient in Benoni where a nurse was going there almost daily. So we go, if it's a community member, we will go to wherever it is within Johannesburg, the surrounding areas to treat you. In terms of Hatzolah's normal responding, so we will look after the Jewish community. Our ethos and our motto has always been that we've got to look after the patient. So we will call on any Jewish community member as long as it's we will never not go to a call. Sometimes our protocols are in a situation that, say for example, that a caller will phone and there's a 25-minute response time. So in that case, what we will do is we'll activate another service provider, because at the end of the day, the patient is number one. We need to make sure that the patient is looked after. But Hatzolah will always then activate ourselves and make sure that we will go to a patient. And in most cases, we actually get there before an alternative emergency medical service. So we pretty much service most of the Jewish communities. But obviously, something like Pretoria, it doesn't really make sense because obviously we can't get there. At the end of the day, patients number one, and we need to be able to get there to look after the patient. So we might in certain instances activate another service, but we will always activate ourselves and make sure that we will get to a to the community member. Uriel, I'm not sure if you want to come in on this side of things.
No, I just wanted to add, you're correct, but I just wanted to add that if for specifically related to COVID, the wellness program is also run in Cape Town and in Durban by Cape Town by CSO Medical, and by Durban is at the Jewish Board. Is that correct? Yeah. Jewish Board of Deputies in Durban is running the same Hatzolah wellness program just for those areas, if there's anyone there. That's it.
Wonderful. Great. Thanks. Yudi, I'm coming to you at the end after Sheri. Sheri, welcome. Sheri, you run Hatzolah Connect. We have a short video, so let's play the video first, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Are you having a hard time? Do you need someone to chat to confidentially? If you need to chat, connect. You are not alone. There is someone you can chat to confidentially who won't judge you. So please connect. To set up the Hatzolah Connect Telegram team chatbot, add the Hatzolah Connect number to your phone. If you don't already have it, download Telegram Messenger from your App Store. You can now send your message to Hatzolah Connect.
So, Sheri, again, this is a great example of a Hatzolah offering, which I, for one, wasn't aware of. I can only assume that there are others in the community that are equally unaware of it. What actually is Hatzolah Connect? We've seen a nice video. Can you just explain a bit more?
Thank you, Rob. So Hatzolah Connect is specifically aimed at teenagers, but I'd just like to say that one of the amazing things about Hatzolah as an organization is that it really looks at the entire human being. It is a medical emergency service, but it not only looks at what the medical needs are, it looks at practical needs, it looks at emotional needs. And what we really have seen, particularly under lockdown, is that teenagers, we've got lots of services, thank God, in our wonderful community, but the teenagers really don't have an outlet. And I think that they were really hit hard with COVID. All the normal natural outlets that they would normally have when it wasn't lockdown or before COVID, they now lost. There was no sports, there was no socializing. And for some people, lockdown was an amazing family time. And for other people who need to get away from their family sometimes, they were locked in with their family. So we have decided to make this Hatzolah Connect chat line, which talks to the teenager. It is all on text. We spent months and months thinking about how to find the safest social media platform for them, which was Telegram. It's a completely confidential and anonymous service. So teenagers can save the Hatzolah chat number, download Telegram, and really connect to one of the 24 very well-trained counselors that we have. And these counselors are also supervised by a group of 10 professionals, social workers and psychologists, who can watch the chat at any time should there be an emergency.
Great. And so Sheri, this was specifically started during COVID, correct? So it's a specific initiative for COVID. Wonderful. I suppose as a teen, and I suppose it's just not only teens, and maybe you can answer this at the end, is that, what specific kinds of stresses are these teens facing? And perhaps, you could go into the general populace as well at the end.
So teenagers, this was specifically formulated under COVID, but it's not specific to COVID. Teenagers had stresses before COVID, and they will have stresses post-COVID. But there are stresses that are particular to COVID, and most of us are feeling a little bit of COVID fatigue and are trying to get on with our lives as if it's not existing. But unfortunately, I think it is around to stay for a bit. And there have been things that teenagers have lost over this time, like matric dances, camp at the end of the year, socials, lots of events that for adults might seem insignificant, but to teenagers, they're huge. And they often don't have anyone to talk to about these things. So we felt that having this young group of counselors that we've trained would be the perfect answer for them not to feel alone and isolated. And often there's so much shame around what teenagers feel because they feel nobody else is going through this. And we're hoping that if teenagers can connect and have someone understand their feelings, that it will go a long way to opening the door to the help that they may need to get.
Yes, and to stress that help is confidential and very, very safe.
Completely confidential. The number doesn't come up. It is scrambled and all the information, and that really is something that Hatzolah can pride itself on from A to Z, whether it's a medical emergency, any kind of interaction. The information is held so confidential that one responder who wasn't on the call will never know about a call that had happened. So I think generally, not just specific to Hatzolah Connect, confidentiality is an ethic that is really held sacred at Hatzolah.
Yes. And how does one get in touch?
So it's quite simple, as the video said. You download Telegram on your phone from the App Store, which is a free app. You save the Hatzolah Connect number on your phone, and really you just get chatting. It's very self-explanatory. As you connect, it asks you if you would like to connect for your non-emergency call, if you'd like to continue chatting with a counselor, or if you would like someone to call you back, it gives you that option as well. And once you connect, within a few minutes, you will be connected to one of the counselors.
Fine. Okay. So again, for those viewers out there who want to know more, I think it's a very, very, very important service offering that Sheri has just described. Like I say, I for one wasn't aware of it. I think it's critical that not only the physical but the mental impact of COVID is dealt with. So for parents or teenagers wanting to get in touch, the contact details are there. And I suppose for those who haven't got it, Sheri, they can just contact the General Hatzolah office and get in touch. Is that correct?
They definitely can.
Wonderful. Okay. Just in terms of a final question relating to this helpline, Sheri, perhaps I can put it to you. It's actually a question from one of our listeners over here. Do you not think that in Joburg we have too many organizations specializing in helplines? Should we not amalgamate all, e.g. Chai FM, Hatzolah, Chev, and probably one or two more? But at the end, that listener does say Yasha Koyach Hatzolah. So it's a positive question. It's not a negative question.
Okay. Again, I must say that our community, thank God, is very well resourced, and we have a policy of collaborating with the other organizations. So we're not ever, working in isolation. We refer to the Chev, we refer to Chai FM. We're aware of all the other services. Our crisis line was used specifically during COVID to assist COVID patients who were struggling emotionally. So that is what would differentiate it from the other emotional crisis lines. But this Hatzolah Connect is specifically geared towards the teenage group, which is a population demographic that does not have a crisis line available to them. And we specifically chose text because that's their mode of communication.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Sheri. Yudi, back to you. There's a comment here on the chat, which I'd like to read out, which I think is indicative of what the entire Johannesburg Jewish community feel about Hatzolah. I just want to thank you for being on this webinar and enlightening and informing the community about the absolutely phenomenal work that you do. We are truly blessed to have you there for us. Knowing that medical help is just a phone call away certainly helps us to sleep at night. Well done, and a gigantic thank you to all of you at Hatzolah. Yesha koach. Yudi, that sums up really the community. There's not a person who wouldn't identify 100% with that comment. My question to you is, how do you keep this service going? How do the responders keep motivated and just keep going and going in this relentlessly effective, efficient manner with a smile on your face, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, decade in, decade out? It just goes on and on. How do you do it?
So I think each person, each responder, volunteer, person working in the background, each dispatcher, the CRU members, everyone who's involved in this organization, I think have their own personal drives. And one thing's for sure, there's the word volunteer that has been mentioned numerous times throughout this this talk tonight. And I think we've got to identify that a volunteer cannot be rewarded enough for the work that he or she is going to do. And the moment you take that volunteering away from a person and you start paying them for their service, or you start perhaps rewarding them for their service, that changes. There's an expectation, and now they want to perhaps do something for another cause. It's very difficult to try and motivate someone to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go help someone that's fallen out of bed, put them into bed, make sure that they settled back in, they're well looked after, and then carry on the rest of their night and day following. It's very difficult to try explain how a responder can go work the entire night. So comes Monday day, works his full day, wherever he's working at various organizations, various companies. Then Monday night he's on shift, works the whole night. It's a busy night. Maybe sleeps an hour, maybe doesn't. And he goes to service the calls. And then Tuesday day, he's back at the office at 6, 7, 8 a.m., whatever time it is that they start their full day's work again. This has to be driven from the person inside. There's a special type of person that joins Hatzolah, and there's a very special type of person that wants to go out and do these calls. You know, I think that's one thing's for sure, and the community are a massive drive for this. We have a full wall at Hatzolah which has thank you letters. We started posting them onto the wall and just putting them up. So when guys walk through the Hatzolah environment, that they can see there are people out there in the community that are thanking them. And Mosh just put up a little picture over here, which is of my own kid, and I suppose that's a little bit of my own drive. My wife got him to hold that paper up there. It didn't last long because he ate it up. But everyone has something that's pushing them to do this. It's scary. We are certainly going into an area that is unknown, that we're not comfortable with, that we're not sure if we're going to be very safe. We don't actually know what's going to happen, but we strive to make sure that it's as safe as we possibly can make it. But it's a real thing that the responder is going out there at night or day. He's going out to someone who's literally going to somewhere and to a place where a person is dying or has died from COVID. And we've got to go and put ourselves into that position to try help them out. And that's a hard thing to tell someone to go and do. And this comes from the drive of the volunteer. We have been thanked enormously by the community. There have been meals dropped off at Hatzolah premises. There have been, Reba Flax has got these food hampers that she's been advertising online for people to thank Hatzolah, to thank the CSO. There are people that are bringing food for the team that work night shift, because we may go home, we may not go home. This may be in between. Let's say we start the shift at 6 p.m. We're going to go out, we're going to do a call. We've got to then come back, shower at Hatzolah, change our clothes at Hatzolah. We've then got to get ready for the next call. And this keeps rolling and rolling. Sometimes we get home, sometimes we don't. And this is sometimes a lifesaver where we can actually eat and drink something. We have a team which have gone and put fridges at Hatzolah filled with drinks. People have donated food, pizzas, pastas. There are ice creams in the freezer. We cannot describe the heat inside these you call them hazmat suits. It is boiling. You come home from that call, all you want to do is relax. You've got to still clean. You've got to prepare your equipment and get ready for the next call. And these cold drinks and these ice creams and these things that the community have provided for us are unbelievably motivating for the guys. The thank you messages, people are phoning, they're sending messages. I don't really know how we can show how we appreciate what the community has done for us. My wife, for example, placed an order with a random supplier for home products, and they identified who the surname was, and asked if I happened to be working at Hatzolah, and she said yes, and they said fine, thank you very much. They then delivered with the order that we purchased, they delivered a whole massive box of extra things just because I'm in Hatzolah. And these are things that we're not looking for, we're not asking for, but the community has really gone out and tried to show that they care, which is important, because I'm very fortunate. I get to do this every day, and I love doing this every day. Some of our guys are not doing this every day, and it's something to help keep them motivated, that they've got to get up in the middle of the night to go out and do something extra for free that they're not meant to be going to do. It's not part of their day work. That's not part of their nighttime family life. No, they've got a sick child at home. They've got regular things that they've got to take care of at home. You've got your washing machine breaks down in the middle of the night and starts leaking water everywhere. Someone's got to deal with that. But the phone rings and someone's got to go service that patient that has called for help. And I think it's just a big thank you to the management team and the board of directors in Hatzolah, who literally spend every single day asking ourselves how we can make this better for the responder, for the dispatcher, for the volunteer, for whoever it is in Hatzolah. How can we make this better and this experience safer and more pleasing, if I can say, because it's quite a difficult thing. And the community is in a massive, massive, massive role in this, and they've really gone out of the way. They've done many things to thank us, and we've received gifts, we've received hampers. The community have really gone out of the way. It's amazing what they've done, and it's amazing to know that they're even aware that we're doing these kind of things. I think that it's a really big yasher koach to the community. And we can't.
Well, Yudi, I will say one thing, that this base Chesed program is going for quite a while now, and we've interviewed a heap load of organisations very, very active. I could be wrong, but I will say one thing, that I think Hatzolah is unique in that there's almost every family in Joburg that has either been directly helped by Hatzolah or knows another family that has been helped by Hatzolah. Whereas I'm not sure that point that I've made can be made for other, and all these, to get onto the base Chesed program, believe you me, they're all fantastic, and I'm not pointing one out over the other and all of that. I'm just making a unique point over here, and that is the service that you guys have provided across the entire gamut of the entire Jewish community. The service of Hatzolah is not specifically directed to one strata of our population. It covers all ages, all income streams, all wealth streams, all religious streams, everybody. And I truly believe that there's not a family that hasn't somehow or other known either themselves or another family close to them that has been helped by Hatzolah. So well done.
Absolutely, thank you. No, it's an interesting thing, maybe I can reflect on this, that we often go to people's houses and we help them out with whatever it is. They've fallen, they've broken the hip, they have a heart attack, whatever it is. And we've taken them to hospital, or the family to hospital, and they often come to us and say to us, how do we pay you? What do we charge? What do we, how do we do this? And it's difficult for one to comprehend that this is a free service. Literally, there's not 1 rand that is expected of another person to have to pay for the service. And it's an important concept to understand, because And the reason we do that is that we would never, ever want someone to have to make a decision whether they're going to be phoning us and they're going to have to spend whatever an ambulance costs, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 Rand, or sometimes 100,000 Rand we can spend on a call. They're going to have to potentially pay for that, or they can stay at home and potentially, take the chances. And we don't want someone to think of that. If they need an ambulance, they must phone. We'll do the sifting and the kind of the processing of what needs to happen from there. But it's difficult for people to ever receive something for free. And this is literally what Hatzolah does. Hatzolah, the whole program that Uriel's talking about, the whole program that Sheri's talking about, they are free services. You're getting help in many, many different ways that one can't pay for. If you went and paid for that privately, you would never receive the service because you're receiving it by people who are also giving it for free. So it's just something to keep in mind. And really, thank you to the community, thank you to everyone in Hatzolah for their involvement. And, hopefully we can carry on doing good work.
Hopefully. Thank you, Yudi. Thank you.
Robbie, can I interject there quickly?
Sure.
Robbie?
Sure. Of course.
I just want to add to that anyone who's had the privilege of Hatzolah arriving at their house knows that every single responder that comes to your house treats a person as if they're your own family, as if they are family members. And I really have to say that it is a privilege working in this environment, in this ethos where every Jew is a family member, and it stems right from the way the board deals with the entire organization to the management, Yudi, Uriel, Darren, the way that they treat the staff. There's a passion, there is an ethos of caring for each other, and I think that is how everyone in this organization has survived through COVID, along with the community propping everybody up. There really is an ethos of family at Hatzolah.
And I think, Sheri, that certainly comes out in terms of delivery. There's no question about it. Agreed. Darren, just over to you for a final wrap-up. Is there anything over the last hour or so that we haven't covered or that you'd like to just say before I have concluding comments? Darren, you're on mute.
So Rob, just I think Sheri kind of took my final words out of my mouth. But just I think what's just being part of this organization, as Sheri said, it's an absolute privilege, and every team member, every person who's part of it really inherently has that love and care to help a fellow human being. And that's really what it's about. That's why the volunteers and the permanent staff and everybody involved in the community really in the organization really want to help. And I think that obviously comes through, and I think you and the rest of the community feel this. I would like to just thank the entire community, firstly for the financial support, for, as Yudi mentioned, the Hakarata Tov, whether it was the thank you videos, letters, meals. We was really so appreciative of them all. Just personally, I'd just like to thank, obviously, my board, our board, who really put themselves out there each and every day. And I think what has echoed through, what would really filter through is when you've got a strong board who really they have a love and a passion for the organization, that's really filtered through over all the years. And just thank you to the entire team for putting yourselves out there, not just during the last few months, but as you say, over the last few years, all the personal sacrifices. Just thank you to everybody. And once again, just thank you to yourself and to Rav Aaron and to the base for giving us this wonderful platform.
Yeah, and to Sol as well. Okay, Darren, thank you. Just in conclusion for myself before I hand over to Rabbi Aaron Zulberg for final comments, it's been my absolute pleasure and delight to interview this entire team. It's certainly been an eye-opener for me to understand the full range of service that Hatzolah does give. And as I said at the beginning, it's much more than just, the call and the ambulance comes and all the help is given at home. It's certainly been certainly very, very informative. And thank you very, very much. And just finally, I talk on behalf of the whole community, and I know that Rabbi Aaron is going to talk further, but it will be totally remiss of me not to thank each and every one of you, Darren, your whole team, and who you've had on today, your responders, your administrative staff, the entire organization, for the Pekuach Nefesh that you've done for us all. And Hashem should bless you all to keep going with the good work, and more important, to keep you all safe and healthy. Thank you. Rabbi?
Thanks, Rob. Wow, guys, to say thank you it would certainly be an understatement. Just prior to actual formal thank yous, though, as is customary in this particular series, to share a Dvar Torah, short Dvar Torah relating to Chesed. We know that Chazal teach us, Tanakh, Olam b'Chesed Yiboneh, the world is created with Chesed, and in fact continues through Chesed. In the context of our community, in relation to specifically Hatzolah, to say this is the case truly is an understatement. And to echo Rob's words, one cannot even begin to imagine a Johannesburg Jewish community without Hatzolah. However, this is not just a matter of convenience or an illustration of a mutually beneficial organization. Chesed, generally speaking, and certainly with regard to Hatzolah, is actually godly. It is a godly act. It's interesting to note that in this last week's Torah portion, when it is that the Torah teaches us a primary example of the kindness of Avraham Avinu, it is right after the Bris Milah, and as importantly, right after we see an illustration of the level of closeness between God and Avraham Avinu. In fact, the sages teach us that God himself came to Avraham and asked how he was doing after his operation. And this is certainly not by chance. So the sages teach us the act of kindness is in fact a godly act. God is kind, so we should be too. It is when Avraham Avinu arrives at that level that he does, in the context of that story, that it is most appropriate to teach us how he could in fact emulate the ways of God, at least in this respect. A society or community that is filled with chesed, filled with kindness, certainly is beneficial to all members of that society or that community. But in truth, it goes deeper. A society that is filled with chesed is a society that is godly. Hatzolah is certainly one clear illustration of a community that is filled with chesed. Individuals who do so much, give up so much for the sake of the community, and in fact, for the sake of even one of the community. Chesed speaks to, or should speak to, the elevation of self and all those around us. We are certainly blessed to have such individuals in our midst and such an organization to rely upon. On a personal note, and on behalf of the organizing group of this series, Soul, and the whole base community, and in fact the whole Jewish community, I'd like to thank Hatzolah for allowing us this opportunity, and in particular this evening, Darren Kahn, Yudi Singer, Uriel, Rosen, and Sheri Hanson. Thank you to each one of you. To see your professionalism, your passion, your commitment, it's beyond inspiring. Hearing about what you do and hearing a little bit more about the broader work that Hatzolah does has really been eye-opening and really very special to listen to. Certainly a source of tremendous pride, being a member of such a community who has such an organization in its midst. It's truly a Kiddush Hashem and beyond special. It is also, again, a true indication of the uniqueness and special nature of our Jewish community. And Hashem should continue to bless you and all of your respective families and all those that work with you, your board members, volunteers, staff, donors, and their families, with much bracha and atzlocha, that you should be able to continue to do this most important work that you do, and so much more. There are certain acknowledgements and thank yous that are most necessary. I want to thank our partners in the series, to Soul, run by Kate Gershuni and Roman Smukla and Josh Sevitz. Thank you to each one of you for this partnership and for all that you do. Rob, to say thank you for tonight, as always, really is you deserve so much more. And to say thank you as well for the time and effort and care you put into our special community. Again, I don't have the words to really say thank you to you. Nonetheless, though, thank you. Thank you to Uriel Weber for all that you do. The series really wouldn't be what it is without your involvement and the organization behind the scenes. And I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you again to my brother Moshe and Jonamo Tech for all that he does for these webinars. The truth is that without him and without his technological expertise, we would not be able to do any of this. Thank you, all of you who have joined us this evening. It's really very special to see so many people in attendance this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Keep safe and have a very good night.